for at least 3 or 4 centuries now, many philosophers and political theorists have very clearly demonstrated that freedom of speech and freedom of expression is at the heart of building substantive equality and democracy. Without freedom of speech, let's be clear, there is no democracy. Freedom of speech is essential to economic development and to growth. That has been well demonstrated, particularly by the economist Amartya Sen, who has shown very vividly that in countries where there is freedom of the press in particular, there is no famine, there is no starvation. Freedom of expression is central to peace and security. And I know nowadays we have a tendency to see them in contradiction. But let me remind you that immediately after World War II, the drafters of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights clearly stated that freedom of information is basically the touchstone of all the freedoms enshrined in the Human Rights Project, because all of the man-made disasters that have required hatred to be implemented, whether it's the Inquisition, the Holocaust, the slave trade, the genocide, and now the sectarian killings in the Middle East, all of those not only require hatred, but they also require complete control over people's expression and sometimes people's conscience. Unfortunately, every global indexes on the state of the world is showing that after several decades of relative peace around the world, we're starting to see a clear deterioration of the indicators of peacefulness within society. That is reinforced by the work that press freedom organizations and human rights organizations are doing, which are highlighting for close to 10 years now a slow but clear degradation of the protection of freedom of expression and of freedom of the press. The internet revolution has brought an unbelievable growth of opportunities for the expression and the information. On the other hand, because of this multiplication of opportunities, governments have become very worried. As a result, for the last close to 5 years, we've seen a multiplication of laws being adopted to control the expression online. The problem with all of those laws is that they are creating threshold and benchmark which are not in keeping with the standard that had been established for the material world. Governments and parliaments have either increased the number of years of prison punishment, or they've simply changed the threshold of what is acceptable under freedom of expression. The other problem that is having a very negative impact on freedom of expression is security. Post 9/11, we've seen the security agenda taking over not only the United States, but internationally. You could say, fair enough, we need to protect security and so on. Unfortunately, 2 things have happened. One, as with the rest of the legal restrictions related to the online world, the restrictions related to the fight against terrorism have often created new thresholds. The second problem is that they are completely abused. Historically, the national security and public orders have always been abused by governments. Now they appear to have almost a carte blanche to do so. If you take a very long-term view on the protection of freedom of expression, there is no doubt that over a century, progress has been made everywhere, including in places where you least expected it, including in places where freedom of expression was reviled rather than hailed. So, China, for instance, is one example where at the moment it is in a drawback, but if you're looking at the last 50 years, the expansion of the space for freedom of expression leaves no doubt. If you look at the history of our world, again, you see over and over again the centrality of opinion and expression. It goes beyond my cultural setting and my historical setting to the core of my humanity. I have to say something, I have to express myself. So to me it is as universal as it gets.